Woo, burr! It is cold this morning. It is April, spring morning. We were 26 degrees, but we've got some work to do. The pasture has been manured, as you saw in the last video. You can check that out if you haven't seen that yet, but we've spread our barn manure out on the pasture to add some fertility, and it is time to set up our fencing for our multi-species rotational grazing system this season. Multi-species rotational grazing is what makes this homestead work as far as animal production when it comes to meat, eggs, and dairy particularly. The way we're able to provide for a lot of people on small acreage, this is about 3.5 acres out here, is through multi-species rotational grazing. Multi-species being multiple animals out here on the pasture together, and the symbiotic effect that happens with them with rotational grazing, which is creating paddocks to move these animals through so they only get a select amount of space each day as opposed to just turn them out into the open, right? We've got to start laying out our fencing today, which is key to making that work. Instead of doing it in pieces throughout the season, which is what we've done a lot of, but what we've determined is going to work better for us is to create lanes, long lanes throughout the pasture that the animals move through, and then we just adjust the beginning and the end each day, what we call paddocks, to move the animals through. So it's going to be less work for us in the season if we do this work now to get the majority of this set up. So that's what we're going to get to. One of the first things we have to do is determine what kind of fence we want to use, right? And you determine your fencing by what animals you're going to have out here. So we're going to have a dairy cow, multiple sheep, multiple pigs, chickens, turkeys, and some geese. That's all what's going to be out here. So for us, what's going to work best, because we want to keep them contained to their paddocks and not have, say, the birds just roaming everywhere. We want to move them through and concentrate their manure and their impact. So for us, netting is what's going to work best. And this is just a Premier 1 netting. And we actually just retooled a lot. Some of this netting we've had for almost 15 years. So while there's a little bit of cost to it to get started, it lasts a long time. This is the first time in the last couple of years we've had to start to replace some of our old stuff. This will probably get us another 15 years. So it's worth the investment for us to help manage the animals move through the pasture. If you were doing, say, a dairy cow and some chickens, you could run, or a beef cow, you could run single wire, not expensive at all, free range your chickens either in a mobile shelter like the Shaws or run them in a chicken tractor behind the cows. That would be a great way to run that system in low cost. You know, another way to do it. So there's lots of options here. For us, it's the netting which really makes this work. What we're going to do is roll out, this is actually our divider fence, or these lengths, they're about 50 feet. So we're going to roll this out. We're going to create kind of a measuring string with the string line, and it's going to help us flag where our fence is going to go. And we'll flag it out first. That allows us to just take the fences in and easily roll them out and set them up. Just about the middle is fine. Yep, right against the post. Yep, okay. And then I'll take this up, we'll stretch it, and then just a little bit longer to right here. This is going to be our guide that will run down off the fence and set flags.
All right.
And then we can also set our first flag down there.
I probably need like a marker or something, right?
Just pull it there about like that. Pull it a little tight, a couple inches over so you got room to hold it. In carpentry, it'd be a storyboard. Create a board that just helps us have the measurements so we can just walk along the fence and set flags at the end of this, and it'll tell us where to put our fence. Yeah. We want at least a 16-foot laneway, which is what we have set up here. We're gonna go 16 and a half. So John, let's walk down to where Connor's at. So this will be our beginning and our end. Okay. You want to get the tractor then and spread these out? I'll take one down to that end.
Okay.
You can put them on a pallet, and you just need to come down the lanes, and I'll try to get one rolled out, and then you can visually see about what 100 foot is.
Yeah. Alrighty.
And we can go for it. Good.
Now go that way with it. Right there.
So let's talk paddock sizing for a minute. It's going to change every situation, right? Your homestead is going to be different than my homestead, different than somebody else's. Your climate's different. So there's a whole lot of details that go into paddock sizing, and I'm not going to cover a whole lot right here, but we got to do some math and figure out what we want. So what I've done based on my climate and my rainfall and my pasture size and the animals that I have is said, okay, how long do I need to rotate through this land, okay? And I want the land to rest at least 60 days between having the animals on it. And that's the whole part to rotational grazing, is instead of having the animals everywhere, always coming back to their favorite spots and mowing it down, you have them in one spot for a day. Some people call it rational grazing, right? You're rationing out the feed just like you would in the barn in wintertime. And so we want to have the right amount of space for the animals for a day, and then they move on, and then that land rests for a period of time. How long it needs to rest? 30 days is minimum anywhere, but depending on temperature, rainfall, 30 days is the shortest you're going to get. For our area here in my pasture condition, I want about 60 days. So I've got to take the land that I have, figure out how to divide it up basically into 60 rations, 60 portions, and what size do those need to be, and is it enough for my animals? That's the basic idea. And so what we have here is I'm setting up for about 2,500 square foot paddocks. And each one of those paddocks is going to get a cow, several sheep, several pigs, and some chickens. And my basic rule of thumb is I don't want to run much more than 1 pound per square foot. So if I've got a 2,500 square foot paddock, I don't want to run probably more than 2,500 pounds of animal through that paddock. So that's what we're laying out for here. That gives us a 60-day rotation, and we're going to have not quite that much coming through these paddocks. When you talk a dairy cow that's 800 to 1,000 pounds, 4 sheep or so, they're going to be 750 pounds total probably, several pigs, getting us up just over 2,000 pounds. And chickens, some people count the weight, some don't. Chickens are changing real fast in weight, and they don't have as much impact as your hooved animals. So if you want to be on the safe side, kind of make a guesstimate of your weight of your chickens. If you got really strong pasture, you're not so worried about it, don't worry about it, just bring them behind. But that's what we're doing here. So our paddocks are roughly 50 by 50, and part of what I've tried to do is work that out with my netting size. And the netting does have some limitations because it's got spacings on it, comes in certain lengths. That 2,500 works real well because it's 50 by 50 paddocks. Our fencing here is 100 foot, and then we have 50 foot dividers in between. So for us, it works real well. What I've also done is made narrower lanes and then just taking some extra fencing and cut them down to the lengths that we wanted. And that can help you get to the paddock size you want. And of course, if you don't need netting and you can run with single wire or a couple of wires depending on your setup, that gives you even more flexibility. It just makes it easier. So you got to be excited because you're out here running this program all season, and this year with the extra fencing that we bought, you're not going to have to hopscotch these fences, right? They're just going to be in place.
Super nice.
So the animals just move through, you detach them at the end, move them through, and move your divider fences, and I'll bet you that cuts the work. It might be, I bet you it cuts it in half or more. We've been saving up and building this fencing up over years, but when you get started, you just work with the fencing you have and you just hopscotch it and move it along, and it works. But this is a nice step forward for us.
Oh yeah.
So if you're getting started on this, and like when we didn't have very much money for fencing. We had to accumulate it over time. And so what you can do is get just enough fencing for your animals. And I used the word hopscotching a second ago. That just means that you've got a couple lanes here and you need another lane here. So you just take the old lane once you've moved over and take it down and put it over here. You can also just make your cells and have 3 or 4 cells worth of fencing and just keep moving one in front of the other. So there's lots of ways to do this. This is what we've worked up to over the years and are working to get it more efficient and easier as we've built up our fencing supply. But you can literally do it with just a couple of these things depending on your animals. You have enough, you got to get animals into one cell, and then you have to have enough fencing to create another cell, or paddock is what I've been using in this video. Means cell, paddock, same thing. But you have enough fencing that you can then move that one and move it out front, okay? And so that's literally how we started. And then eventually we got enough fencing to have these long lanes and dividers, but we still had the hopscotch, you know, take this one once we're done with it, move it over here, and we get, and so forth. So you can build up to it, and that helps make this approachable, because the netting does, you know, it hurts the pocketbook a little bit, but it's well worth it in the long run. We're trying to get a lot of different things done on the homestead, and we want to find the greatest amount of efficiency we can out here on the land to minimize our labor and maximize our output. 2.5 hours of work, and we've got all our lanes in for the year. That is going to save us so much time and make this so easy to come through when it's time to bring animals out. And that is actually the next step. The next step is to let the grass grow a little bit. We're a little light on moisture in April, and it's a little cold, so I don't know when we're going to get out here, but the grass will grow. We want to get it up 6-8 inches, and then we can bring animals out and start moving them around. So if you want to learn more about multi-species rotational grazing, check out this video here.